Okay, so this is the winners final between the Fuel and Dragons. Uh, my school captain from my university team wanted each player to kind of look over a game and wanted to look at like some ball comps like Brig Zen, but also like ball sombership. So here I am watching this game. I figured I'd just record it. That way I have like a record of it, and I actually did it, but also I'll put it up on my YouTube publicly so that some other teams or anyone who is interested can watch it. Um, yeah, so I wanted to start on Ilios, and I honestly haven't watched these games, so I'm just gonna kind of comment on things as I see them and go through them. Shouldn't be super in depth because I won't be able to do everything, but um, yeah, we're just gonna walk through some of this stuff as I see it. Actually, make sure I have sound. Okay, so Dragon start with a TP and a speed. So speed is for the ball. I'm assuming that's what they're going to do because I swapped to Brig. Yeah, so what the Dragons are going to do is they speed so the ball can take early positioning and scout, um, or get like positioning as soon as possible. That way they can kind of make their plan and go from there. You TP for the Brig Zen. Brig is going to bash out of spawn so that she can get to the TP. The TP is going to set up, allow the Brig Zen who are low mobile to get to high ground faster. That's actually a nice little angle there, through the doorway. And they're just going to run right up the stairs, set up here. The TP is always good if you are, it's always going to be slightly faster if you're going in a straight line, but if you can use it to go around certain angles or corners, and if you can go in a straight line, that's better. So if you can get up over grounds or avoid like certain structures, that's always going to be slightly faster. But it is good to get your any non-mobile characters, especially your backline, up onto high grounds or getting them very strong starting positions. The Fuel, I imagine, are probably not worried about the high ground. They're probably going to play in the cage and play around the mini and go from there. Ball might play point, and they might have like a two-pronged attack going from there. Fate, I imagine, is probably going to come into the mini and try to get some scouting info as soon as possible, but he can't get hacked. I'd be pretty surprised. Looking at both comps, I imagine the Sombra and the Ball are going to play together on both teams, unless Flash swaps to Tracer. Yeah, he swaps Tracer. Yeah. So you'll probably see the Balls play super passive, or if they are playing aggressive, they'll be with one of their DPS. For the Fuel, it'll probably be the Sombra. For the Dragons, it can be Sombra or Tracer, potentially both. But you never want to be caught alone on a flank as a ball when the enemy is running Sombra, so I imagine they'll be playing relatively close to their team or passive, or they'll be with one of their DPS. Okay, if you'll take inside, Fate sees that they're going inside, so he's trying to wrap around them, right? He gets to his high ground, which is safer versus like Sombra matchups, but also he has a different angle, which is always good, right? Hyper mobile comps or any sort of dive or poke off angles are powerful, right? You want sort of surround. So the Dragons have more of a poke comp, where the Fuel have more brawly, right? You can call it a poke, you can call it a dive, you can call it a brawl, whatever. It really doesn't matter. What's important is determining if your comp has more brawl aspects than the other comp to determine your win conditions and how you play the matchup, right? So the Fuel have more brawl because they have a Mora and a Reaper, right? The Dragons have a Zen, so they're going to poke out, look for resources, look for a dive, or look to force out key cooldowns and then go. So they can force a brawl after they force key cooldowns, or they can punish someone, like if Sparkle uses his Wraith too early, because of the pressure they apply due to the angles that they have. Um, but they're not just going to like face rush, and the Zen isn't just going to run at the Reaper, obviously. So a couple of key differences. They're going to try to wrap all the way around. See, your team gives a shit about point because point doesn't fucking matter half the time on Koth. For first fights, it's all about positioning. How much position you can take and how fast you can do it, which is why rollouts are super important on Koth for first fights. So basically what's going to happen is Fuel are going to come around, push them off of their high ground, right? Collapse onto the Brig and the Zen, push them into the Sombra, and then they're gonna collapse. The fight's probably gonna happen here or on this high ground. We'll see. We'll see how hard the dragons want to hold it. What's Fate doing? Okay, so we'll see them rotate. They'll probably rotate back here because you want to have like you want to mirror rotations, right? So if you think about it like a circle or a square, you always want to be at the farthest point away from the enemy brawl as a poke, or have your least vulnerable, your most vulnerable. This is pretty basic for Zen, Ana, sometimes BAP, but Zen, Ana specifically. You always want to have a buffer zone between you and the enemy. So if Fearless is 0.1, and then Fate is 0.2, and then they're going to drop here, right? So notice how it's like a line to create the maximum distance away from Fuel's engage, and Fate is trying to be in between the engage to create a buffer zone for the backline. So this is important for Zen Ana specifically. Your counter rotations and the timing rotations are super important. But it's a good rotation by the Fuel to push them off the high ground, because the high ground makes it 10 times harder to actually collapse onto them. They're going to go inside because playing inside is actually really good with Brig. That way you can punish individual divers, so the ball can get punished. You cannot walk inside, otherwise you will get fucked. Are they trying to chase the Sombra? Where's Doa? Oh yeah. So they are chasing him, which is good. Doa should have repositioned his translocator. Very smart by them. Great boop by Fear, trying to get into the middle of this, right? And they're gonna play around this doorway. That's fine. That's fine. Ball has Harmony. Brig has Harmony because it's engage. Typically, you will keep Harmony on things like the Diva, the Ball, Tracer if she's fighting on a flank and you want to give her some sort of advantage. But with things devolve into like the mid-fight brawl, you typically Harmony the Brig, which makes a lot of sense. That way you can sustain through it, right? And Brig does really well in these close spaces, right? So it's very easy to punish. Who hacked this? This is Dragons. Did Dragons get that hack? Oh, that's nice. Nice. But it's still a brawl, so Fuel are gonna have a slight advantage, but because they had Fuel had the one man advantage, they can probably win this, or at least stall it out long enough to have an advantage. Zen dies. Brig stayed alive. Kind of weird. They prioritize Zen. Ball starts with Harmony, right? Same thing. Look, so Doa passed a different direction, that way he doesn't get like spammed out needlessly. Reaper's up here. Diva was also up here because you want to clear this high ground, right? You don't want Ball to be able to just like slam in or sit up here and poke you. Always clear high grounds, whether you're going to take them or not. It's important to kind of like scout them or push to make sure that your backline doesn't get fucked, to make sure they don't get free poke, to make sure they can't scout you as easily, whatever. But it's important for Sombra to take different paths so she doesn't just get randomly poked out, which is really good by Doa. Lip stayed alive that entire fight, so he will have an ult, which is really fucking good. Yeah, I guess I didn't really feel safe going high ground. I thought it would take too long since the fight was super scrappy. So they're gonna walk through here, which is gonna be the next farthest point away. So high ground might still be good, but again, we're still counter rotating, so we're as far away from their engage and their tanks as possible, right? Again, Void's taking the middleman position. Fate is over here with the Fleta. I'd imagine, so what's probably going to happen is Fuel are going to rotate through. They're either going to like push this way just like this, like through the pillar, or they might wrap around here. Either way, the Briggs End rotation is to point, left side to point, as long as you don't get booped. And then you kind of just like counter rotate as they rotate, right? If they decided to go point and go after like Ball or Tracer, then Brigand's End would kind of rotate over here to this side. Right, again, just mirroring the rotations so that you're never going to be caught or got on top of. Or it takes them long enough, or Or you rotate long enough to give your team time to force out specific resources, right? Or find picks, right? So if we, again, force out Reaper Wraith, force Reaper Warrior Fade, and then we can kind of burn them and chase them from there. Good pulse. It's a little bit of a feed, but it's fine. Yeah, they're really disjointed. So basically, they were going to go for like a Coal Slam. Coal is really good for burning down Brig and Zen at range, but Fielder's kind of just feeding there, and I guess they were trying to force it. Maybe they're going to swap off the Moira. It's kind of weird. They're getting staggers. They know how they have a major advantage. That's why Zen is pushing up here. He also has Brig armor, so he's totally safe. He's just looking for like, see if he can get like an exit frag. Void's on the high ground, which is good. Always looking at an off angle. And that's also good for charging his ults, scouting, and he's just protecting his backline by being proactive. We see Fate protecting that Mega. Let's check see. They're taking the close rotation, so they're probably gonna force point. Maybe they try to go on Zembrig. Again, look at the different angles, right? So if Eula is coming from this direction, then the Sombra is over here. She could be over here, even down on the pool side, right? She's on different angle, right? The ball wants to push them into the Sombra, basically, right? So you have the ball come from one angle, the Sombra come from another, and then the Zembrig can't rotate away anywhere safely. That's the idea. Briggs are probably going to rotate over here if they go point. We'll just kind of see how they want to roll out. I imagine they're going to look for an EMP here. Try to just win off of the EMP. See mines in that? Yeah, good mines. They're going to come through. They're trying to come through his choke, so he's just denying that. Disrupting their rotation, always good as ball. They have very little punish on him. This is a 2-man EMP. Yeah, what is Fielder doing? I'm actually really confused. What the fuck? Were they just trying to bait it? No, they have enough ults where they, even if they tried to bait, oh, that's weird as hell. How's this trance usage? Fielder's feeding. I don't know if they're trying to force EMP or trying to bait EMP and then save with beat, but their positioning was bad for it anyway, so it's kind of weird. Let me see his trance. He has rally armor. That was a response to the beat. He heard the beat and he was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna match with trance, which is fine. But there was no real pressure from Doa there. He could have waited another second or two, especially with Lee Jae-gong still there. Yeah, it's just a response to the beat, honestly. He wanted to use it early to make sure that they sustain through the fight. Or maybe he saw, was Void low there? Maybe he saw Void low. I don't know, doesn't matter. Fight's won. They probably didn't need trance, but it's fine. Yeah, so now their ult economy is kind of shit. I feel basically just use an eco beat to reset their ult economy and win the next fight. Is what should happen. And that should take them into 2-fight territory. Flood is gonna have to look for a huge pulse bomb, maybe get Jexy. They have to have Mega Scout for Doa. They're gonna go high ground now because they have time. Also, they recognize that they've shot themselves in the foot with the fucking ult economy. So it's gonna be much harder for Fuel to engage or to follow up on any sort of like dive or any sort of mobility when they are high ground. So it'll be much harder for them to follow up on the EMP. That's the thought process going on here. The same can be said for like playing lower, but also they've been down here for the past 2 fights, so mixing it up is also good. Like see Do is down here scouting them. Because if you play in here and one of your supports gets like EMP'd, you can try to duck it, and also you have the Mega to run back to. But the high ground is probably better because you can still duck it into this room, and yeah, again, it's harder to follow up. So probably a good rotation. They have the time to make it. Look how Void is scouting. Do they see? Did they see Doa? Okay, yeah. So Li Jiegong changes position when he saw Doa. So Flood is over here trying to farm Pulse Bomb, trying to be really aggressive with it. That's fine. So you notice how Li Jiegong is sitting here. This is the only path up for Sombra without her translocating in. And translocating in as Sombra is pretty shitty if you don't have to do it. A lot of times you have to do it at higher levels because they're better at scouting and their positioning rotations are just better. So you're forced to translocate in, but you really don't want to if you don't need to. So basically she's just scouting the only rotation up the Sombra has without using translocator, making it 10 times harder for Sombra to get an EMP off onto the back line, right? And notice how they're also kind of split. So if she does her translocate up and she gets the Zen, okay, Brig's still alive. Or she has to go through Brig to get to the Zen, right? And then as soon as Doa uncloaks, I think she changes her position. Okay, yeah. So she gets called there, and he's gonna rotate point to try to help point. He's not gonna rotate, but he's gonna pay more attention to point. It's just a little bit aggressive, but it's fine. Is the Aki gonna drop? Sombra translocate it out. Yeah, so honestly this is fine because they've scouted everyone. They knew Sombra was on point somewhere. So basically what's gonna happen is the Brig and the Diva are still playing middleman positions. Zen can drop here if he needs so that Brig can help him, or drop to the bell tower or the center pillar. But like Void is still playing the middleman. Li Jiegong is still able to help the Zen, just not in the same way. But Fuel have decided to commit to this fight on point, so it's fine for Li Jiegong to actually like play more down so they have the sustain. Because if they don't have the sustain from the Inspire healing, which is much harder to get procs from up on this high ground, especially if they're forcing point, Dragons will lose. So he kind of has to stop. Almost got the bash there. Nice. Fielder faded in. Thought it built Pulse, but I think he whiffed it. Or didn't hit anyone with it, so it's fine. Alright. Okay, so it's a bomb, blossom. They'll also have coal. Flood that dies, that's kind of shitty. Let's look. So they're pathing up high ground. Okay, this is what I mentioned earlier. Like, Ball is not going to be hard flanking without one of his DPS there, unless he knows exactly where the Sombra is. So they're kind of playing together. If you obviously want to deny this high ground, so they are going to start up here. They want to force the dragons to push them off to use their time. And you're always going to want to put them up here. So Diva, Reaper, Ball. I think Doe translocated out this way, it's over there. Let's see. They could also engage here. We'll kind of see what happens, because it could be like a bomb engage here and then Sombra's behind them or something. But I don't think they're actually set up for that. Oh yeah, here they go. Here they come. Yeah, there it is. Okay. She's just sending it now. Ball's gonna slam in to make sure they can't get away. Sombra is slightly out of position. She should be further back here already. But that's fine. This is actually a pretty good kill box because they're never gonna walk out into you. They're gonna try and poke you out, take angles, and force you back in some way. So engaging here to try to get a pick with Blossom or Bomb is decent. Because basically what's going to happen is if they don't force the fight here, they're just going to sit here and poke them until you'll have to drop from this point. Or the Fuel are going to have to go back point because Fate and Lip are playing together on the flank. I don't know where is Fleda? I have to find Fleda. Where the fuck were you? Okay, he was on the high ground. I don't know why he was on the high ground. Did he get slammed? I don't know. Doesn't matter. At this point, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but if they stay up there, they either get forced to drop by poke or they're forced to drop because of the flank pressure. So because Fate and Lip are playing together on the flank, they're going to be able to force people back to point. So Jexy's going to try to challenge them, but he's never going to be able to win this, and he's probably not going to be able to stay alive for super long because there are two of them. And so they'll need someone else to come back. Look at him, he cannot stay there because he will get fucked. So if you'll have to engage here, otherwise they get poked out, or they are forced to leave that positioning and they have to give it to the Brig Zen, which is shit. They don't want to do that because of the flank pressure, right? They don't have flank priority, they don't have lane priority because they're running Sombra Ball, whereas Dragons have Tracer, Sombra, and Ball. So the Dragons commit 3-person on a single lane or single flank and beat the 2-person flank of the Sombra Ball, right? Unless you send more resources like the Reaper and you set him up there early because he's not gonna be able to get into that fight, or Fielder fades in, which we've seen him do, which is kind of feeding, but whatever, or Jexy kind of matches as well, right? But it's still hard because Dragons have priority and they force a response with their flank priority or their lane priority. Let's watch us engage, this bomb engage. Because Doa is slightly out of position, he should be there sooner. Back a bit further. I'll probably just do Ilios because this is, yeah. Okay, so Void's in the middle, man. So actually this is kind of interesting. So you see Void shooting this, he's spy checking for the Sombra. A good tip for D.Va is when you're trying to spy check a Sombra, especially when you know she's going to flank you, or she's looking for your backline because she has positioning, or she's got past a choke that you guys were already spy checking, is shoot at your supports. Because 9 times out of 10, well, a lot of the time, not 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the time Sombras will try to sit exactly 180 of your supports, which is what they generally should do because they want to be on the flank. So if there's only 2 paths for the Sombra to be, i.e. up here or behind, this rotation is really good because it forces Sombra to pick one of those two. Then Void's job is 10 times easier because they've made a good rotation. He can body block this so that Sombra's never going to be able to shoot through him, right, as a middleman, and then he's spy checking behind them to prevent Sombra from hacking to start the fight. Right? Yeah, so I wanted to watch. So this slam's good. That's kind of a cool, good ball slam location. Reaper starts to go in. Yeah, it's kind of shitty because like Jexy should not have to be here. Jexy should be with the Reaper here. Which kind of sucks. And Fielder's down here. So this is why they lose, because they're too split. Jexy has to match the flank prio to try to stall. Fielder fed, so he's on low ground. And this is before Moira jump change, I believe. So he's not going to be able to get there as easily. And Doa's not back here soon enough. Like, Doa should already be, like, here. Like, at these plants, at the, whatever the fuck this is, garbage can? I think it's a garbage can. Looks like cat and hat. Yeah, like Doa should already be here. But it's good fearless slam angle. They just bash out and drop. I don't think Izayaki got caught in that slam, which is really fucking good. Yeah, I don't think he did. Right? But look at the distance that Izayaki has from Doa because Doa wasn't in position already. Right? Doa could have been like in this doorway as they were slammed and like before Izayaki landed or before the bomb went off and actually pressuring them. Yeah. They basically got checkmated. Oh, that's huge from Void. Yeah, Sparkle is basically not effective in this fight, and then Void forces his Wraith. It's huge. So then they just walk back high ground because they've forced all the resources. In fact, they can probably force a fight onto the Reaper and Lucio right now. Let's see what Lip does. EMP? He might have been able to EMP that and just win the fight there. But Fielder dies because he's feeding. Like, Moira doesn't need to fade in. If your Moira has to fade in with your Reaper, you're actually feeding and playing the comp wrong. Like, I don't know why they keep trying to, like, he feeds and then he tries to compensate by feeding more to by getting there faster, by using fade to get into the fight faster. That's what's happening. He's getting punished for doing stupid shit, and he's trying to compensate it by doing more feeding, which is just shitty. If your Moira has to fade in when you're diving or jumping people with this comp, or any sort of like Winston D.Va, whatever, as well. Like it's just bad because now your sustain is in the middle of the fight and use their mobility to get there, right? And now she can't get out, right? She's probably used heal orb to get in as well, heal or damage orb at the beginning of the fight to either burst someone down with damage orb or sustain the initial burst with the heal orb. And she's used her mobility, so now she's got what, a little bit of life steal left, to kind of keep herself alive in the middle of everything. Like a good team's just gonna fuck you up. If Reaper's in the middle of the fight with no Wraith, he will be one of the first targets to die. Otherwise, the enemy team is just stupid and they're not playing the comp right, right? So it's basically just punishing the Moira who has no abilities to save herself, right? So, but Dragons checkmated them before this fight, so just fuck the ball. Reaper's there too, so but Reaper didn't have Wraith anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Zembrig just walk point because they have big balls and no one can stop them at this point. They're just gonna look for an OT touch. It's probably gonna be Sombra first, Lucio, then Sombra, and then Lucio will probably go for another one, and then we'll see what happens with Ball, but he's fighting people on the flank. Izayaki goes back to one of his default positions. Good sight lines, right? He can't be shot by over there. No one can get to him. He's got a linear path, so if like a Sombra or a Tracer or literally any flanker comes in here, this is very easy for the Zen to deal with, right? Because they can't use their mobility to get away. He might be able to see the ball or help the ball flank. Flood is watching his flank, which is also good, right? But this is just good positioning. He's got walls, he's got a mega, he's got teammates there. His angles are isolated. It's just good positioning. EJ Gong is going to stay point because he wants to CC and punish anyone who comes to point. And Izayaki's going to be fine because he has trance, honestly, but he's within range to get peeled by the Brig, by the D.Va, by literally anyone else. Tracer can also help peel for him through damage. So they're just going to want to destroy people. Sombra touches first. Forces bash. Lucio going to come in from the top. Please don't drop down, Jexy. Please don't drop down. Oh, that's a feed. That's a fucking feed. If you're gonna do that, they're gonna C9 it, like you won't be able to touch now. That was really bad. Come on, Jexy, man. At least tell me you went to fucking beat on their heads. Because if you tried to get the beat on someone's head, then I can accept that. I don't even think he looked below him. Because if you're gonna beat, then he can't be the second one to touch. Like, if Sombra's gonna initiate the touch because she can get out the safest, and it's hard to punish her. But if you're gonna go for the beat engage, it has to be Ball or Doa touching again, or like Sparkle getting in and then like wraithing out, and then staying after his wraith. He stays in, and he gets beat to win the fight. Like Jexy can't be the second one to touch there if he's gonna beat, which is just shitty. Dragons thoroughly kick their ass there. What comp do they play here? Balfera? Okay, run well. Again, we'll see TPs out from both sides. They're probably gonna, they're gonna TP out right side so they can get cage advantage. They're gonna set their brig Ana's up here. Well, brig Ana or just Ana in the case of the dragons will probably set him up there. Again, good with characters with low mobility, so you can get them position first. Always try to get your rollets perfect on Koth because initial positioning is super fucking important on first fights. So it'll probably be Sombra and Tracer. Yep. Okay. Flood is gonna play right side. That's fine. That makes a lot of sense. So Dragon's rollout is basically Void Ana kind of playing up here. Pharah, Mercy are gonna play here, and then Ball's gonna try to control this flank. And what they're expecting what they'd prefer is either having a support sit up here so the Pharah just pelts her, or even playing main is fine because Pharah can deal with that, and now Ana can contribute to the main fight as well. So there's probably been a bit of scouting on the Dragon's part to actually do this right. But it doesn't give too much of a shit about that. Ana's can stay high. She stays high. Yeah, okay. Lip wants to control that flank. That's fine. Ball can't go inside because he'll get fucked if he goes inside versus on a brig. He can play a bit more by himself because they don't have a Sombra now, but he'll still probably play with Lip at times in order to make sure that he has certain flank pressure. Let's see what Doa does here. Actually, let's go. Wanted to see this duel. Want to see this duel. Being pretty aggressive. Yep. Yep. Tracer can't get to the Ana because she's high ground, which is really good. Mercy swaps to healing the Diva mid-fight because the Ferret doesn't need her healing. And the sustain is more important mid-fight. Thought I got slept, which is kind of shitty. That's fine. That's actually kind of funny. Because I think a lot of okay, I think a lot of Mercies would look at the Ana Mercy comp and be like, oh, I have an Ana. I don't need to focus on main tank healing or tank healing as much, and I should just be damage boosting. But obviously that's not the case in like Zen Mercy matchups and stuff like that. But I don't think that's actually the case on this map either, because you want the On to be able to put pressure on the Pharah Mercy or the Echo, and the On is going to have limited sightlines, right? She's obviously going to try to rotate to help her sightlines, but see, as soon as she drops, Monkey goes. She's alone, Monkey goes, right? Void's immediately turning to try to get back to her after trying to pressure the Echo. And Mercy goes back to her, which is good. But Mercy has a lot more mobility, so she's going to be able to follow a lot of fights, which means she might need to heal tanks more, right? You shouldn't assume that because you have an Ana, you're going to be able to actually be able to just like focus on damage boosting. If you can damage boost rockets when she's firing at the Ana or the Brig, that's huge, especially the Brig. But if your Ana has to deal with something like an Echo or a Pharah or either of those with a Mercy, you're gonna have to adjust more of your attention to the tanks as a Mercy player, or just to the frontline dive battle. Oh, get her, Lee Jang. Yeah. Oh, he just dies. That sucks. They're just stalling out percentage at this point. Don't get bashed, Fate. Adaptive. Nice. Cool. Blink. Recall. Blink. You gonna feed for it? Did not feed for it. That was interesting. Okay. Ana's rotate high ground again. Either high ground is fine. Right, making it harder for the Tracer to land things like the sticky. What do I want to look at? I want to look at... I don't know, let's do this. Bash away. Back to your Ana. You're dead. Bonk, good body block. Armor pack on the Ana. I think you got antied there. Aggressive Ana versus Brig is super important. Yeah, because Lee J Gong swaps as soon as they see the Sombra Tracer. I like Sombra Tracer better versus Echo because it's more flexible than the Pharah. You can play faster, forcing the Echo to react instead of just being able to, shoot sticky beam your backline or your tanks. So I like the Tracer Sombra matchup a little bit more. But the aggressive, my point about the aggressive nades, if an Ana is able to defensively nade herself in Brig versus like most dives, you're never gonna kill their backline. Like it's really fucking difficult unless you have shields that like block some of the healing or something and blah blah blah, inspired healing and shit. But if you can get some sort of burst damage like the Pharah rockets, for example, but also the nade is a big one, right? If you have map positioning and you're not worried about being dove, or you think you can kind of initiate before they can use their nade aggressively, if you can get the nade onto the Brig or the Ana, they will die. Like it's really hard to keep a Brig Ana alive in these kinds of comps when they're naded. It's like super hard. He's an Ana behind him, so he's not too worried. But he gets naded there, right? Because Brigs play pretty aggressively, especially mid-fight brawl. So they're often, if you nade them, they're going to be out of position, right? They're not positioning expecting the nade, right? So when you hit the nade, they're in a position to just feed because they can't be healed. They're not able to heal themselves. Ana's not able to heal them. They're just feeding, right? So it's like such a change in like their positioning and their tempo, which is really good. Brig clears high ground for the Ana just to make sure. Bash away from the pulse. Always clear the high grounds, always. See, we saw the aggressive nade there. Dragons have tempo, they're able to like force the fight onto the enemy Brig. Fuel isn't able to kind of pressure the Ana or the Brig in the backline as much as they did in the previous fight. So Izayaki is able to use his nade aggressively. Also, rally makes a difference. Because if you have rally, you don't necessarily need the nade to nade defensively. Get back inside so the Echo can't fuck with you. Holding the armor pack, good discipline. Recall negates the armor pack, which is kind of funny. Where's the Izayaki playing? Super aggressive because he wants to fucking nade someone. He has to back up because of the high ground. Ambitious sleep, but it was nade, so it's our nano. Doesn't see the Ana. Has to nade his team to help them. It's the Ana Brig. Counter rotate. Good flank by the Echo. Right, but again, go back to the idea of like matching rotations. Right, they rotate onto here. So if your Ana starts here and the enemy is here, right? Look at the point as the square. It's the farthest point, right? Math. You could literally do the math and realize that like, oh, this point to that point, that's the farthest point. Unless we started adding three-dimensional shit. But whatever, triangles, super basic. Everyone should have learned this shit in high school. Or even middle school. So, farthest point, they jump here. Ana's like, okay, I go back inside. Cut Ilios with walls, they have to push their choke to get to me. There's a mini. Now I counter rotate over here. And I'm just like running away, right? It's a circle. It's literally a circle. Does he C9? Oh my god, he C9s. Oh, that's fucking funny. Okay, I'm gonna end it there. That's about 40 minutes, so that should be fine. Yeah, those are just some of my thoughts, and as like me watching that for the first time, kind of just thinking through it. Didn't go into like a lot of like super micro shit. Um, yeah, I don't know. I hope that was useful to someone. I needed to watch something, and I figured I'd record it for people. To kind of like hear my thought process. Um, yeah, hope you learned something. Have a good day.